I don't think I have to make a speech today about why we set today, September 11th, aside as a day of remembrance. I think we all remember what happened September 11, 2001. Most of us even remember where we were that day. I'm not going to have to make a speech about that. I think we all understand what happened. And I think we know why we set today aside to remember those that we lost on that day. I gladly join in with the chorus of people saying, let's remember those we lost. But one thing I am not going to say that everyone else loves to say is never forget. People love to say 9/11, never forget. But I'm not going to join in with that because I think people have already forgotten. They've not forgotten what happened, but they've forgotten why. And they've forgotten who made it possible. They've forgotten the lessons we learned that day. So I'm not going to say never forget. People don't seem to remember the lesson of unity. After 9/11, we all came together as a country. We showed that we are strongest as one single unit, that we are Americans, that we have more in common than we have differences. That's just the reality. And that when we stand together, we're pretty much undefeatable. But since then, we seem to have forgotten that lesson. We allow ourselves to be divided over petty issues, or issues we even agree on, but are fed different versions of. We allow ourselves to be divided by profiteer billionaires and the politicians and the media they control. So we've forgotten that lesson. That's a lesson we need to somehow try to remember, but for now we seem to have forgotten it. And I find that to be sad. I think that's even more important and even sadder than remembering what happened, because it damages us as a people continuously into the future. It's not something that happened in the past. It's something that's happening now and will affect us in the future. So I find it incredibly disheartening. The other thing I find disheartening is we seem to have forgotten why that happened and who made it possible. I know a lot of people think, well, we went over and took out them Iraqis. Well, they didn't have anything to do with it. So that wasn't what we should have done. I think we know that now. Hindsight's 20/20. But one thing we did know at the time, and we know even more now, is the role of the Saudis in what happened. They're the ones that primarily funded it. The people who flew those planes were Saudis, primarily. Even right after it happened, when there was a total ban on air travel, the Bush administration managed to get planes to rustle up all the Saudi royal family and diplomats, etc., and get them out of the country after it happened, even though there was a total ban on air travel, because they were afraid at that point that the role the Saudi government and the Saudi royals played in 9/11 was going to become public and they would be in danger. And our government was very beholden to those people at that time. Less so now, but still we're catering to them. Because not only did that happen right afterwards, but nowadays we've got politicians that are currently in charge in this country bragging about helping the Saudi prince get away with murdering an American-based journalist simply because he printed unflattering stuff about them. Bragging about helping him get away with it. And that's disgusting as far as I'm concerned, because the Saudis have never been held accountable for their role in 9/11. In fact, now it seems like the entire United States government is willing to say, oh, bygones will be bygones, forgive and forget, even though they've never been held accountable, as long as they'll recognize Israel so that Israel can have a greater role and a larger stake of the world power and everything else, and so that crooked as fuck Netanyahu can stay in charge. Seems like we're willing to say, hey, as long as you say you'll recognize Israel so Netanyahu can get a bigger piece of the pie, we'll say, forget everything you did. Forget about those buildings and those people you killed. And I find that to be disgusting. I don't think we should be doing anything with Saudis. We shouldn't care who Saudi recognizes, who the Saudi Arabia recognizes. And we definitely shouldn't be supporting anyone in the Saudi royal family. Especially since the country itself is like one giant hotbed of human rights violations, period, to this day, especially against women, gays, anything else that, isn't what they consider perfection or norm. So I don't think we should be dealing with them, period. But like I said, today is a day we need to remember those we lost. But we also need to start trying to remember the people that caused that loss. We need to start remembering who did it, and we need to start remembering that they never got held accountable. We need to start remembering the lessons we learned afterwards. How we are Americans, all of us. There isn't one side that's anti-American and one side that's pro-American. We're all a little bit in the middle. We're all pro-America, we're all Americans, and we all have beliefs that kind of intermingle. There are people that are pro-choice and pro-gun. And there are people that are also the opposite. There are people that are pro-life, but they're also pro-gay marriage. We're not this two columns that the people like to represent us as to try to keep us warring with each other and not pay attention to what's going on in the world and our own government. Those are the lessons we need to remember. We not only need to remember the lost, but we need to remember things that we should be doing now. Lessons we should have learned from that. Lessons we have failed to take to heart. And we need to start remembering that we need to stop buddying up to people who caused that without ever being held accountable. I know a lot of people are going to give me shit about this. Saudis are our friends. Saudis ain't never been our friends. They've been our masters quite a bit because they control the oil for the oil companies that at one point in time controlled our country. Not as much anymore, but for a while there. So we need to start remembering these lessons. Let's not just remember those we lost. Let's also remember the lessons we learned, because if we don't learn from those lessons soon, it's going to be too late. Hey, this is the Yankee Marshal, just reminding everyone out there that if you disagree with anything I say in any one of my videos, be it something political or tactical, I am going to give you the opportunity to come talk to me face to face instead of just having to put stuff in comment sections where someone might not even read them. You can come in one of my live chats and tell me off in person. You just have to send an email to shootingleftofcenter@gmail.com, and in the subject line of that video put slap the yank, and then I will get back with you and set up a time where you can come in one of the live chats and tell me off face to face.